Join your host, Maddie Roche, as she brings you into a community of fee-only financial advisors who are successfully building profitable businesses that serve the next generation of clients. Learn from innovative advisors whose unique stories will inspire you to dream big and take action on your goals. Are you ready to live your best life and help your clients live theirs? Then you're in the right place.
Hello, and welcome to XYPN Radio, episode 321. I'm Maddie Roche, your host. I'm excited for today's episode with Ashley Foster, a Latino advisor and owner of Next Gen Financial, a fee-only firm out of Houston, Texas. Ashley started his career in the captive insurance space, learning how to sell and acquire clients. As many of our guests have experienced over the years, Ashley started to feel drawn to the fee-only space and to serving a community he wanted to. And as such, had a discussion with his former employer about changing his career trajectory to becoming a business owner. 3 years into it, Ashley is serving over 30 clients, mostly of whom are veterinarians. He's making six figures and is loving life more than he could ever imagine. Ashley has a lot of great advice to share with you today, from how to navigate the exit conversation with a company to leading into the painful moments of growing your business as opportunities for growth. Ashley is really candid today and shares with us some of his most fulfilling experiences as an advisor. If you're interested in how to navigate out of the insurance world and into the fee-only space, this episode is for you. An event made just for fee-only advisors? Yep, you heard that right. It's XYPN Live. And with over 45 content sessions, 3 keynotes, a one-of-a-kind exhibit hall day, and networking opportunities galore, it's the game-changing event you've been looking for. Join us in November, in person or virtually, and leave with knowledge, new connections, and a whole lot of inspiration to accelerate your progress and smash your goals, no matter where you are in your advisor journey. Visit xypnlive.com for full details and to grab your pass. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN radio listeners. It's a community of advisors we've all been looking for. That's there to provide support when we need it the most. Best of all, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. Hello, Ashley. Welcome to XYPN Radio. How are you?
Hey, Maddie, I'm doing good. No complaints at all on a Monday. Can't complain. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, Ashley. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. I think you have a lot to offer. You've built something really cool. And I'm going to have you do the honors of introducing yourself to our wonderful listeners.
Yeah, my name is Ashley Foster. I'm a certified financial planner here in Houston, Texas, and I own Next Gen Financial Planning. I've been in the business now for 14 years. I got my start back in 2007. Man, it's been that long. 2007 at a captive insurance company, New York Life, and spent 7 really good years there. And then I went independent with a mentor. And then 3 years ago, right around this time, actually October is going to be my 3rd year anniversary, is when I opened the doors, quote unquote, to Next Gen Financial Planning.
Congratulations on 3 years, Ashley. I love that point in time for our members. You can just sense the difference that 3 years makes in terms of
that first year was pretty rough and pretty nerve-wracking, but it's really cool to kind of look back on it 3 years, 3 years down the road and go, man, this really worked.
It really worked, listeners. You heard it. You heard it. Awesome, Ashley. Well, I'm excited to dive into that challenging first year, but also from your experience. I mean, starting in the insurance world and making your way to being a real financial planner to people. That's a big transition and evolution. Not everyone makes it there. Ashley, I'm interested in your work at New York Life and just knowing a little bit more about, what is captive insurance? Who are you working with? And what was your, exposure like during that time?
Yeah, that's a great question. So captive insurance basically means that you are basically under contract with one specific company. You can really only sell their product. So as you go through the training program, you get training specifically on their products. So for the first 2.5, 3 years of my career, I was a captive life insurance agent, financial advisor, whatever they allowed us to call ourselves with them. I then got promoted to be a senior associate within New York Life. And my role was the basically the Latino markets community relations associate. So I went out into the Latino community. Although my name is Ashley Foster, it's the most gringo name on earth. I am Mexican on my mother's side, and I spent a lot of time down there, and I speak Spanish very fluently. And so I had an opportunity to work with that community, and it is a tragically underserved community here in the United States. And it was very eye-opening working with that specific niche. My job wasn't to sell insurance in that niche. My job was to recruit agents from that niche and bring them on board to New York Life. And I learned a lot of really unique things about that has translated into my business a little bit when I've worked with a couple of Latino clients, and so it was one of those deals where it was very eye-opening to work with people that were just like me. They look a little bit different. I'm a blonde hair, blue eyed gringo, right? But that I speak the language and very much understand the culture. And so it was really cool to work with those individuals in that market.
Ashley, I'm interested in what your experience was working with that community.
And that's a good question. And I bring this up because there may be some advisors out there or that work within that specific community. When you're dealing with a community that may be recent immigrants to the United States and things like that, they may not, truly understand how our financial system is over here. Case in point, a couple of my clients are from El Salvador. They're not first generation, they're children of immigrants. And the banking system in that country, right? Like you put your money there and one day it could be gone. Like there was no trust in the financial institutions and things like that. And so they would bring that as well here. And I think one of the things that was really that we tried to do that was very important at New York Life that I felt I had a mission to do was go out there and really help that community out. But granted, what we weren't doing was really explaining to that community what financial planning really was. And what financial instruments were available to those individuals. So case in point, one of my clients owns a very successful business. There's a guy I play soccer with. He's an awesome guy from El Salvador, owns a very successful business, a little bit outside my niche. But I just want to help him because he's just an awesome dude. And, he didn't even know what a 401k was, how it works. He just knew that money was coming out. He didn't know how to read any of his statements for his business. The person that set up the 401k wasn't even there. I'm not managing the 401k. That's not my business. But, when I sat down and explained to him these things, like, this is how your investments work. This is how the ETF works. This is how the index funds work. This is how the savings accounts you should be doing work. And it was just interesting that he was like, man, this person never explained to these things. So when I sat down in front of his father, who's a co-partner with him, and I explained it to him in a language that he understood, right? Like in Spanish, like, estos son los inversiones que vas a tener, right? Like all of these different things about it. And he wasn't very educated on these things because no one was educating him on them. Because again, I think people were just kind of out there in the life insurance community. They were really trying to help them with the product, but they weren't trying to help with the process of financial planning. Totally. And I think that if you're an advisor listening to the show, I think there's such a wonderful opportunity in the Latino community to be able to help a really underserved community. I know there's some advisors like Luis Rosas that are doing a really good job of getting that out. But I think that community really needs the help that you can provide. So if you're working in that community, you definitely have an arm up above and beyond what others are doing out there for these larger companies. You can really help them out.
I'm interested in a little bit more detail kind of on your career trajectory and what brought you to financial planning from insurance.
That's a great question. So when I was in college, I'm super ADD, and I turned on CNBC one day, saw all the bright flashing colors, and said, you know what? I don't want to be a high school history teacher and a soccer coach because I'm a former NCAA athlete. I played soccer in college. I said, I want to do like financial advising. That's really cool. And so I got inspired to kind of look at a career like that. I graduated from Florida Tech and where I played and went to school, and there was nothing available unless you had like a business degree or something like that. I had a degree in humanities. So there was nothing available to me. And so went back home to Houston, Texas, and got involved as a recruiter for 6 weeks with a large company. And I hated it. It was very structured. They told me when I had to be at work. They told me when I needed to leave. And so a random opportunity, my mom, God bless her, she was out at a networking event for her work, was passing out my resume to whoever would take it. And it landed at a partner at New York life insurance company's hands. Got an interview and boom, started the training to be a life insurance agent or whatever they wanted me to be back in November 2007.
It's a theme of this podcast that our listeners are familiar with, that really any experience is good experience, whether it's fee only in the insurance world, to be able to look back with hindsight and see what you've gathered from those experiences. How did working at New York Life help you for the business owner you are?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So it was very much, it was a commission-based environment. And at the end of the day, you ate what you killed, right? And so that kind of struggle and really having to go out there as a fresh-faced 23-year-old to go sell life insurance, that was probably the most difficult 2 to 3 years when I was actually in the field of years of my career. And so it really kind of taught me a lot in terms of kind of facing adversity, dealing with getting no's. I hated cold calling, but we had to do it, especially back then. There was no really other way to get in front of prospects. And the sales training that they provided as well was actually really good. Now, granted, if you're trying to be a financial planner and you're trying to provide those, that level of service, you're not getting it at those companies. But what you are getting is a really good level of sales training. So I used that experience, really kind of served me well going into opening my own practice years later when I started Next Gen Financial Planning.
Great. Yeah, I hear sales as being one of the best types of exposure you can get at some of these different places. So I'm glad to hear that. Given that, you want to get the listeners updated a bit on kind of the number of clients you work with, who you work with, and how you work with them?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So Next Gen Financial Planning serves primarily individuals and families that are in their 20s, 30s, and early 40s. So I've got one Gen Z client. It's my sister-in-law, God bless her. But most of my clients are going to fall within the range of about 36, 37 years of age. As far as number of clients right now we're working with, I just picked up 3 new clients this past week. So we're now right at 30 clients that we're working with on an ongoing basis. I also have 5 investment-only clients where I just manage. I'm just there to manage money, and then I also have a program, kind of like a quick start or whatever. I call it Next Gen Accelerate, where it's just project-based, and I've got about 4 different clients. 2 of them are still ongoing, and the other 2 come on every once in a while if they need a touch-up on their plan or anything like that.
Beautiful. Have you built really intentionally? Were you scaling at a rate that you controlled?
That's a great question. So yes and no. I think when I first started Next Gen Financial Planning, my real worry was like, is this thing going to survive? And I was so focused on building a client base. I knew the age range of the individuals and families that I wanted to work with. I didn't have a specific niche, like a professional niche. I kind of just created that out of thin air. I said, well, I live in Houston, Texas. You can't throw a rock without hitting somebody in the oil industry in the head. So why not go after people in the oil industry? And then on the flip side, I said, well, I know some attorneys, so why don't I just join some young attorneys groups in town? And that's kind of what set off the niche in terms of a professional niche later on. And that's morphed into something completely different now. But at the very beginning, it was just about like, can I survive? Can, we pay our bills? My wife is just starting back then. She was still my fiance. She just got out of veterinary school. So she's getting her first job. I'm having to kind of rely on savings here. Like, let's make sure that this thing works. And so it was just a matter of just kind of like this mad dash scramble to pick up clients.
Yeah. And so in that first year, what was your client goal? And did you reach it, or your revenue goal?
Yeah. So my revenue goal was just to be profitable. And so just to kind of jump on a bit of backstory, again, the way that I got here is that I had a succession agreement with a business with a mentor that was working out until it didn't. And as we said in the pre-call, right, the road to hell is paved with broken succession agreements.
I love
right?
that.
And a lot of the listeners can understand that. They may be involved in something like that as well, right? Where you think one way and then all of a sudden it turns into another, or your values aren't clicking with the individual that you're supposed to be in agreement with. And so I sold him my book of business. I said, look, I'm doing this fee only thing. I can't have any insurance clients. That's really all I had. I'm going to sell you my book of business, and that'll give me the seed money to start. And it was a pretty significant book of business with sizable, renewals. And so I sold that my old business partner's book, that book of business. We made an agreement that he wouldn't reach out to a couple of certain clients for quote unquote investment management. I only took one client over, by the way.
Wow.
But he's been very good at honoring that. And then I've sent him a number of life insurance referrals. So we have a great partnership still, right? But I'm just not, a part of that team. I've got my own thing. And so the goal was really just to break even, and not have to eat too much into savings. Well, in our first year, we actually broke even. We turned a little bit of a profit. I think it was like at 2,320. I'm getting picky on it. So like $2,321 or something like that, right? Right. Like I made money. Cool. You know what I mean? Like the expenses were heavy, right? I invested heavily in a website and things like that, very heavily in that website, but figured that if you're going to put up a storefront online, you better make it look really nice.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really a revenue goal or a client goal. My goal was just to survive the first year. And that happened. And then that kind of gave me the impetus to go, well, this thing might work out. Let's keep going. And then from there, I started kind of setting more goals and metrics and things like that. I was like, okay, if we can at least get, at least one client a month or something like that, somewhere around there, I'd be excited about that. But really another metric was just, revenue. Like, can I get a certain revenue goal and things like that? And I wanted to be at six figures by the time I was in my third year, and we're there.
Yay. Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Before we kind of get into the challenges of that first year in particular, I'm interested in your conversation with your former mentor. You said it worked out really well. It sounds like you're on a good basis with him. But what advice do you have to our listeners who maybe headed into conversations like that, whether it be about an established succession plan they had discussed, or just, hey, I'm ready to move on? Did you do anything that you think was absolutely necessary to make that successful?
Yeah. So, when it comes to that, there has to be, I think, some triggers, right? Like you have to be in a position to where you're just not happy or your values aren't jiving, right? And my specific trigger was when the DOL rule was starting to come out into place, and my former business partner was kind of raging against that and saying, "Oh, they're just making it more difficult for us to make a living," and da 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 da. And I was like, "No, I think this is actually a good thing. I think that, we should be fiduciaries, right? We should be, legally obligated to do what's in the best interest of the client." Like I jive with that. And so that was kind of like the thing where I was like, look, that's where our values just are not going to align perfectly in that respect. And it was a bit of a surprise to my business partner when I just said, listen, I think I want to go in a different direction. I've really enjoyed our partnership. Things have worked out great. And we had a lot of really good times together. We made a lot of money together. We helped a lot of people, right? In terms of placing life insurance and things. We just did a lot of really cool things together. So it was really difficult because I consider he was much older than I was. I mean, I consider him like a grandfather, basically, right? We were very close. And so it was difficult having that conversation. But again, you have to just kind of get to that point where you're like, look, this isn't going to work anymore. And I've got a ton of years left in this business. And I just want to build something that I'm excited about and proud of. And I want to work with the people that I want to work with, the way that I want to work with them, and not have somebody say that I can't do that, a broker dealer say that I can't do that, or a business model that says that I can only take this client on if they have X amount of dollars to go ahead and manage and what have you. And so I just broke it to him. I said, I said, Mel, let's sit down, and this is how I feel. And I just said, this is how I feel about this. I want to do this. And I just don't think I can do it here. And, he was a little hurt, understandably, right? It was difficult. It was tough. But, what I think about my old business partner, Mel, I really think he had my best interest in mind. I really think he wanted me to succeed. And I brought a lot of business to the table. He made his money off of me, right? At the end of the day too, and so I think that was really important that I didn't keep anything from him, that I was just straight up. And then I just looked at it as like, it's just business. At the end of the day, it's business, right? Like I got to go one way, you're going to go the other. We're both going to be fine. And I'll still support your business. When I have clients that need life insurance, I'm going to come to you because I know you'll take really good care of them and you know what you're doing and what have you. And we'll go that way. And it's worked out very well so far. We still stay in touch, have a good relationship. He's a wonderful guy. It just didn't work.
Right. Well, kudos to you to being honest and true to your own destiny. And I think it's a really good reminder to our listeners that we're the ones in our driver's seats, for this life, but also for our careers. And a lot of years can go by really fast, and staying true to what we want to do is the best thing you can do. I'm interested, kind of while the DOL ruling was taking place, you were in this non-fee-only space. What was drawing you to the fiduciary fee-only space? Did you continually read and listen and engage with people in that side, or was it just this instinctual feeling of values?
That's an awesome question, because you're going to laugh. So back in 2014, I remember this vividly. I saw a Business Insider article, and it was an article that was discussing a little tiny company called XYPN, and they interviewed a gentleman named Alan Moore.
Weird.
And talking about this subscription model for millennials. And I came away with that laughing. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Subscription model for millennials? Like, can you even make money doing that? Like, is that a thing? Because I came from an old school model, right? And so this was something that was kind of new. And I remember having a conversation. I was getting my CFP at the time in 2014, 2015. And I remember having a conversation at a financial planning FPA meeting, Financial Planning Association meeting, with an advisor who I sat next to. And I said, hey, what do you think of this? I was just shooting the shit. And what do you think of this? Right. And he goes, can you make money doing that? Like, how can you make money doing that? And I just kind of explained to him, this is a gentleman that I had seen a number of times, and I thought he was a cool cat to talk to. And I respected his opinion at the time, but it kind of turned into a challenge. I was like, maybe I can make money doing something like this. Well, this was 2014, 2015. And I went through the CFP program, and I just got super excited about financial planning. I was like, my friends are asking me these very specific questions. Like, how should I save for a home? What do I do about my 401k? These student loans really suck, right? Like all of these different things. And I just couldn't help them where I was at unless I sold them a life insurance policy, or I was just going to give advice for free, right? And I felt there had to be a better way. I felt like I'm getting this like expensive designation, right? At the end of the day, I'm taking like a year off. I'm taking these tests. There's got to be a way to service my friends who are coming at me with all these questions. And that's really kind of what started the direction of looking into, a way to service younger clients profitably. But then again, I think the big trigger was that conversation with my business partner, and how I felt about the DOL fiduciary role at the time. And I was like, yeah, we really should. I mean, I think we should, if I'm working with somebody, I want to know that they have my best interest at heart and that they don't have a lot of conflicts of interest. And in the insurance space, especially to listeners that are currently there, the conflicts of interest are massive and exist, right? Your benefits are tied to your contract. The more you sell, the greater the trips and things like that. Like one year I went to an all expenses paid trip to Prague, from the insurance companies. We sold so much. Another story for another day. That's how I met and fell in love with my wife. But that's kind of a different, that's a different story. But those are all conflicts at the end of the day. And while I really had a great time on the trips and things like that, it just didn't feel right that I was pressured to always consistently sell. And I just wanted to do things that were kind of on my level, on my end, and working with the people that I wanted without that outside pressure of having a sales manager or hitting certain contract metrics and things like that. I wanted to control my own destiny without those conflicts of interest. So the DOL conversation really was that trigger where I was like, okay, there's got to be a better way. And so when I approached my business partner about, let's do some financial planning, he's in his 70s, old school life insurance guy. Everyone needs life insurance, right? If everything looks like a nail, you got a hammer, and that's a life insurance policy. Well, I didn't feel that way. And I said, well, let's see if we can incorporate financial planning. I'm going to take a look at this Money Guide Pro and eMoney thing. And try to do it this way. And I was a CFP and I was just super excited to do it. And it's not that he wasn't supportive. He was just kind of very nonchalant. Okay, go do it. And I'm like, well, let's us do it, right? Like, this is our business together. And it was just kind of like, you go do your thing, just make sure you sell a couple of life insurance policies while you're at it. And I think those conversations and that kind of really set me on the path to like, okay, like, my business partner isn't jiving with me. This one financial planner says that I can't work with millennials. I laughed at this article back in 2014. I don't know, maybe this thing might have some legs, and I'm very competitive. And so I said, well, let's give it a shot. And I reached out to XYPN in the beginning of 2018 to go through the process of getting set up. And here we be.
Oh, I love that. And I recall those conversations early on. Can people do this successfully? And I remember shaking hands at conferences and having those kind of conversations. And it's like, well, yeah, we believe so. And now, 7.5 years later, we're able to say absolutely. And in fact, you can do it profitably in your first year. I'm wondering, kind of in your experience of your first year, you mentioned that you invested heavily into a website. I'd be interested from your perspective, what were some of the other major must-dos for you or that you did during your first year that led to profitability?
Yeah, I think it was really just focusing on client acquisition. If you're a brand new firm and take a look at Tesla, right? Or any type of growth company, like, you need to get out there and build up your clients. You got to put a product out there really quickly, a very good product, a really good service, and you just need to get people inside the door. And that was my focus, mainly because of the training that I had as a life insurance professional, right? Like, go get clients, go get clients, go get clients. I felt that I needed to get out there and really focus on that. So obviously the website, that was not cheap. That was almost $10,000 to put that puppy together. Obviously you can do it for a lot less. And I've seen people do it for a lot less. I just felt that if I'm going to invest in something that people are going to see immediately, might as well make it right, as shiny and as attractive as possible. And so that's where we went with the website. On the flip side of things, getting, the right technology in place, right? That was very helpful. I like to say that I was using Zoom before Zoom was cool.
Yeah.
I was doing meetings in 2018 on Zoom, like cool, and then all of a sudden people were like, oh, what's the Zoom thing? I was like, I know how to use this. So that really helped out, and really just focus on building a virtual low cost type business, right? Not like a Sophia Berra low cost business, right, with her startup. But, at the end of the day, I wanted to be able to build a nimble business, because my wife and I had some goals of wanting to do a lot of traveling and things of that sort. And that was her big dream. And I wanted to support that. So having a business where I'm tethered somewhere, it really didn't make a lot of sense. On the flip side, then it was all about acquiring clients. Like I said, I'm a soccer player. I play goalie. One of the really good advice that I got really early on in my career was like, if you want to meet people and bring them on board as clients, like, go meet them doing things you enjoy doing. That way you show up. And I enjoyed playing soccer. So when I was 24 years old, I joined like 6 soccer teams. I was a goalie. Everyone needs a really good goalie, right? And so I met so many people through networking through soccer, and just kept a lot of relationships up and running that way, that when I transitioned over, it was a natural fit to then just kind of announce, like, everyone kind of knew what I was doing and things like that. Just getting the word out there among my friends and things like that within the community that I had built. And people started coming. It was a slow trickle at first. You get one client here and one client there, but all of a sudden, towards the end of my first year, all of a sudden we started really focusing on messaging and things of that sort. And it really started to open up.
Oh, beautiful. So I'm interested in why you describe the first year as hard. It sounds like it was a really magical experience.
It was, but when you're going through a magical experience and you don't know it's a magical experience, you're thinking it's like the worst thing in the world. It's funny, my wife and I had this conversation, and she's been a veterinarian now since 2018. We were talking about her first job, and I remember how much she just was not happy and things like that. And, but she kind of looked back at me the other day. She said, you know what? I kind of miss that a little bit. And I said, yeah, I look back on my first years in the life insurance business, and I missed that as well. It sucked. It was terrible. My credit card got declined at a gas station one time because I was so broke. that was not fun, but I missed that. Like, it was so much, there was a lot of struggle and a lot of growth. Right. And so your first year is really challenging because it really is, you're going out there and doing uncomfortable things. You're growing, right? Like you're quote unquote embracing the suck. And it sucks because you're like really wondering to yourself, like, can I do this? Do I have the right education? My challenge is I didn't come from a financial planning background. And so I was like, well, how do I conduct financial planning? Like, how do I do this financial planning? Like, what meetings should I do? How many times should I meet? I had no idea because I was a life insurance salesperson, right? And then maybe somebody on the financial planning side probably is like, great, I have a wonderful process, but how do I get clients? Like, I knew how to get clients. I just didn't know the process to bring them through. And I was able to formulate that early on. But my first year was just because I was out there shaking hands, kissing babies, networking. I joined several groups, the Young Attorneys Group in Houston, Texas, a couple of young professional oil groups here in Houston to meet people in the oil industry. I was meeting a lot of people and having a good time, just talking to people and telling them what I did. And, we were living off of my wife's income at that time and my savings. But and it was tough and challenging, but I look back on that and I'm like, man, that was just so much fun looking back on it because you really did grow a lot in that first year. And that was the exciting part that in your first year, you can't see because you're literally just trying to survive.
Right.
But I promise you, when you get to that promised land of getting there to the third year and now you've got clients and you're building a process and you're building something, you kind of look back on that and go, wow, that was actually really cool.
I love that, Ashley. Good advice. I'm interested in your experience kind of selling your services to young people, Gen X, Gen Y, and the rest of them. Everyone knows they need insurance and, you can't convince me that I don't need it, but I am interested in how you feel like consumers have changed their emotions around financial planning or even understanding of financial planning over the years that you've been working with them. Have you sensed that people are beginning to accept financial planning as something they deserve and want?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's tough to answer that. I think that, financial planning is something that's very difficult and abstract. It's very hard to define. When people ask me what I do, the simplest answer I can give is just like, I help young people like yourself do smart shit with their money. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we do. But how do you translate the awesomeness that is financial planning and what we can really do for people, right, into such a very short and definable thing where you can just spit it off like in 10 seconds.
Right.
It's very difficult because sometimes, like, I had that conversation with my wife, like somebody asked me like, oh, what do you do? And like, sure, I could have said that, right? But I tried to explain what I did and it brought up like these random questions that I just wasn't prepared for. So I think it's very hard for the consumer to understand what financial planning is. I think what happens is that there's certain triggers that a consumer goes through in their life that you have to be there for, right? So in the life insurance world, it was the birth of a baby. Somebody got married. Somebody sold a business, right? On kind of the more morbid side, but it was true. Somebody's neighbor died, right? Like, those are triggers to get people to think about life insurance and their mortality. With financial planning, if you've got somebody that's like 23 years old and fresh face out of school, more than likely they're not really going to look at needing your help because they think they can do it on their own, and more power to them. It's when their life begins to get more complicated above and beyond what their knowledge base is. And when we're in the business of financial planning, we always think that everyone knows what we do because we're surrounded by it, right? We go to the XYPN Facebook page and everyone's talking about, has these great financial planning questions and things like that. So we always think that like, well, the consumers obviously knows what this is, but the consumers don't, and so we have to be there for the certain triggers in their lives. They start, when they start making a lot of income, right? If you're dealing with a high earning professional, when they get married, right? And then in that aspect, you're merging two independent, separate people, money stories and everything into one cohesive unit. And they're going to need you to help them not only with the money, but also in the behavioral aspect of things. You just have to put yourself in a position to be available and be top of mind when people are going through certain triggers in life. And that is what's going to get them to reach out to you for financial planning. right? When those triggers do occur.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you have morphed your niche a bit over these years. What have you landed on, and what do you see them needing you most for right now?
Yeah. So, being married to a veterinarian, I meet a lot of veterinarians, and it's a rather interesting business. 3 years ago, before COVID, the talk was that the industry was starting to get oversaturated. Income hadn't gone up, commensurate with the need and things like that. Well, now COVID happened, and everyone's getting a COVID puppy or COVID cat. Right? Animals are now more like children than they are just animals, right? They're a part of our lives. And the veterinary world has such an incredible shortage of people. And so as I started kind of progressing, I did the oil industry thing. I found out that's not for me. Number one, I was never in it. But number two, I had some clients that were in the oil industry, and then they graduate to a certain level of complexity and income, and to a pay grade scale. And all of a sudden, the company offers them financial planning for free, basically, right?
Oh, interesting.
Right, as a executive benefit. So I lost 3 different clients to that. But how can you say no to free? I totally get it, right? And so, I kind of put the oil business thing to the side, and I said, well, why not attorneys? And I've got some attorney clients, but most of my clients now are veterinarians, and they're veterinarians. About maybe half to a little bit over half of my client base are veterinarians.
Wow.
The majority are female. They're all kind of in their late 20s, early 30s. Some are married, some are not. And that's kind of where the niche is really kind of grown into. And seeing now that my wife is an ER veterinarian, that's a kind of more of a scaling down of the niche. Not just veterinarians, but emergency vets. There's a massive shortage of emergency vets out there. If you go to your general practice and you try to, for your pet, and try to schedule an appointment, with your normal vet, you're probably on a waiting list for 3, 4, or 5 weeks, right? Emergency veterinarians are kind of like a different breed of veterinarian, because it's almost like an ER doctor. I mean, you're dealing with these very complicated cases. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of emotion and stress. And so, I've kind of gravitated towards that because I have now a really good understanding of how to help those individuals. So my practice now, although it doesn't necessarily say that I cater to that specific demographic, I've built some great relationships with other young advisors that work in that demographic as well. And, we've come up with something called the Veterinary Financial Association Network, I think VFAN for short, me and now 3 others. And we're starting to get some leads through that and things like that, because we're trying to build more of a presence and working with younger veterinarians. And that's kind of where everything is really morphed into. And it's been a really good success. Out of the 3 clients that said yes to me here recently, 2 of them are veterinarians. Right. And so we're starting to kind of build that niche and really getting a clear understanding of how to help that niche. And they need a lot of help. And I'm super stoked that we can offer that help to them. Because even some of the conversations I've had recently with some of my clients, I mean, the amount of, the amount of complication that they have and things like that, not being able to go ahead and have a fiduciary, a disinterested third party that they can have conversations about with their money and things like that. Some may have made bad decisions. And I've talked several of them out of making really bad financial decisions. And that's where you really start to kind of see like the value that you're providing on a day-to-day basis. That's what kind of keeps you going. Long answer to a simple question. I know that's what I'm known for. But at the end of the day, that's who NextGen strives to serve.
Oh, I love that. What a good niche. One that certainly needs some support. And to me, they've saved my puppy's life a number of times. So let's talk kind of in hindsight. And I feel like a lot of this podcast is you looking back at your career, but that's really the point. In terms of kind of personally, how do you feel like Ashley Foster has evolved over 5 years?
Oh boy. Very much so. And I think that has to do a lot with, just being in my 30s and being more mature about things and going through some life experiences and life events and things like that. That's really kind of helped me get to where I'm at, other than, obviously God and the help that you get from there. My wife has been a huge influence on my growth, not only just personally, but professionally as well. They say that the smartest financial decision that you'll ever make is who you marry. I personally believe that at the end of the day. I really do. I think that, you have to partner with somebody that is going to support your dreams and goals and going to help you grow. And I got lucky. How I met my wife was just, like I said, completely just random, and she's been kind of the greatest support system that I've had. So looking over the past 5 years, could I have done this without the support of a great partner? I wouldn't have been able to, honestly.
Wow.
And so looking back on that over the past 5 years in my growth, she has been a huge part of that, because we've been together now for almost 5 years. And if it wasn't for her kind of pushing me along, I never would have started NextGen. I would have been very comfortable selling life insurance and staying in that business. I was making good money. There wasn't really a need for me to move. I was getting accolades and recognition, all the fun things. There wasn't a need for me to break the mold. But she really pushed me in a direction to kind of just live my best life and really understand who I want to serve. So, looking back on it, Anna's been the greatest motivator of success for me that I possibly could have ever had.
Well, good job, Anna. Well done.
Yeah.
Good job, Ashley. I'm interested, Ashley, who's your current team and what do you plan to do with your team in the next few years?
Yeah. So current team is team of one, me, myself, and I. But I am getting to the point where I feel that we need to, I need to start delegating some of these activities. I have brought on some coaches in the past.
Cool.
At the very beginning, I worked with a business coach, and she was very, very helpful because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, in terms of building a financial planning business. And I can't remember her name. It was Diane. I can't remember, but it was a while ago, but she was just very instrumental. I heard her on a Kits' podcast, and I was fortunate to get her on board with me. I did hire someone to help me kind of systematize some things in my firm and things like that. And they've been and they were really excellent. I'll just throw out the name. Cameo Robinson with Atlas Park Consulting was awesome.
Yeah.
And she really helped here recently get some stuff kind of more systematized. But yes, next year I'm getting to the point that I need to bring on a virtual assistant. I've heard some of people in the recent podcasts just say how that has kind of just been life-changing for them. My challenge, Maddie, is that I am not a good delegator. I'm somebody that likes to control all of the moving pieces and processes. Anna, my wife, is an awesome delegator. She's really good at doing those things. You kind of have to be an ER vet. And so, she's been really kind of pushing me to get a virtual assistant. And I think 2022 is the year when I really start to look at something like that. I don't want to grow more than I want this to be a lifestyle business. That's that's what I wanted it to be from the start. Want to work with my specific set of clients, build up those bus seats, and then just leave them there, because the way that I view my clients is like everyone's like family. I know everything about my clients. They know everything about my family. Before COVID, we even used to go out to dinner with some clients and my wife. Like, I wanted these people to be connected long-term to NextGen. And the way to build that was to build a personal relationship, not just a business relationship with them as well. But now I've got to start focusing on like the time that I have available to do some of these like tasks that are meaningless. I mean, they're not meaningless, but like I hate doing them so much. Right. And so might as well try to outsource all of that. So 2022 is the year of kind of like really evaluating. Now that I've hit this third year, 2022 is like that, like, okay, how do we really want to build it to the point where we want to build NextGen into this wonderful lifestyle practice where where I'm consistently making $250,000 to $300,000 a year. Like that'll help us sustain what we want out of our lifestyle and the level that we want to be at, and then keep it that way and working with the right people.
Awesome goals. 30 clients is no joke. 30 clients is a lot to manage on your own. I'm interested in what's the service model to these folks. And it sounds like you flirted a bit with the surge meeting structure. And I'm interested in an update on that.
Yeah. So I did flirt with the surge model. We are currently dating. Here after the surge meetings are complete, I'll tell you if it's a relationship I want to keep going or not with or not. Right. But the service model that I've kind of built at NextGen is what I got really good at was building a very defined model to get clients on board. That was my number one thing when I first started. And that's what I needed to be really good at, was building a process from the time that a client reached out to me to the time that a client signed on the dotted line, and then getting that financial plan pushed out. So a lot of effort went into developing that service model. What really lagged that I didn't know how to do was build a service model on the back end. How do I service these clients? Do they really need to meet with me on a quarterly basis? Well, they're all young professionals who are starting families and have busy lives. And the last thing they want to talk to every quarter is their financial planner. At least that's what I got from some of the surveys that I sent out to clients. And so I heard about the surge model. I think Meg Bartelt and maybe a couple of other people, Benjamin Brandt, I think was talking about this on a podcast. My buddy Adam Beatty here in Houston, he and I had a conversation about that. He was starting to implement that, so he kind of gave me the push needed to implement all of that. So cheers, Adam. And yeah, so this is the first time doing that, where we try to get all 30 clients, or at least the ones that aren't in the process of going through the financial planning, getting a financial plan put out, into a 2-month window. So September, October, beginning of November. The reason I picked that was to coincide with open enrollment as well as end of year tax planning. And then 2022 is going to be March and April to coincide with kind of like tax day and things like that. The summer is notoriously difficult to get people in touch with people, and so I didn't want to bug people in the summer. So that's why I kind of picked those 2 dates. Plus it allows, Anna and I the opportunity to go do traveling and things like that in the summer. So we're not having to worry about the surge meeting process and, having to meet with a ton of people all at once during a time that we feel that is very important to us to have to ourselves.
Totally. So does that mean during the months that you're surging, are you slowing down on business development? Are you not taking new client calls?
Yeah, no, not at all. Those 3 clients that I just picked up were during the surge process. Right. I'm looking at my calendar right now, and like Wednesday, Thursday, I've got like 4 different meetings on that day. Wow. 2 of them each on those days. I only have 2 surge meetings a day. So 2 of those on each day are going to be the surge meetings with my clients. So a total of 4 for the week. So no, I'm not pausing new business and things like that, mainly because I'm I just can't, because of the nature of what I grew up in. Like I'm always wanting to acquire new clients and things like that. So that's where my wife has been really instrumental in being like, okay, you need to raise your fees. Okay, you need to really kind of focus on this kind of client niche and stuff like that, right? Or else I'd be saying yes to everybody. But simple answer to your question, yes, so far, my first surge season, I guess, I have still decided to take on new clients.
Well, that's really interesting, because I imagine as you're kind of delivering and meeting with clients, you get jazzed about it. And because of that kind of immediate inflow of energy around your work, you're probably coming off really strong and well during your sales meetings, because it's on top of your mind of just what kind of impact you have with clients.
It's amazing. I went through a process here not too long ago where I had a surge meeting with a young veterinarian, and she was in a situation. She's out in the Midwest in a rural area, works for USDA. So she's a rural vet, works with large animals, right? So she's the one that's responsible for making sure your chicken and your cows are healthy to get to your plate. And she was going through something very personal that she had brought up to her parents, but was with her fiance and wanting to start a business and things like that. And she didn't really know how to tell this individual no, right? But we had a meeting about this. I let her chat about this and talk and give me all of the things that she needed to give me about the situation, ask her some very probing questions about that, along with kind of like a real picture of her financial situation, the investments that she has with me. Sure, we went through that process, but it was really this conversation about what to do with this business opportunity. And I gave her my unbiased opinion. I said, you need to do this and this. This is not a good idea for you. And at the end of the conversation, she goes, man, I just feel really good about what you tell me, because now I can just go talk to him and I can say it was you that told me to do these things. It wasn't coming from me, right? And that got me pretty jazzed. And I'm like, well, it just reinforces to me like why people need us. And it's not just about money. Sometimes people need permission to do the things that they need to do in life, but they themselves don't either have the chutzpah or the courage or whatever, right? To say yes or to say no. And when they hear it from someone like ourselves as financial planners, then we give them that permission to say, no, this is not a good idea. We shouldn't do this, right? Because then they can just throw it back on me. And that's cool. Throw it back on me, right? Like I'm cool with that. That's what we're here for as fiduciaries. And that gets you pretty excited. You can tell I'm really excited about having a conversation with a client, right? Like if you were a client, like we'd be talking about all the cool and amazing things that I can do for a prospective client, all the cool and amazing things that we can do for you. Like It's amazing what real financial planning looks like. So yeah, like it does get me pretty jazzed up. So, and then I get performative and I really enjoy having those meetings with prospective clients because that keeps me alive. Like that keeps me going is meeting new people and getting that energy and being able to pass that energy off to new people. And hopefully, like the email I got today from a young ER veterinarian who said, let's do it. Like, that's cool. Because there's so many cool things that like I can do for this individual that she has no idea about. She is so underpaid at what she's doing. She can make so much more money. She can make better decisions about her student loans. And like, I can help her do those things and put her on so much more of a better path. It gets me jazzed up.
Oh, I love that, Ashley. Well, it kind of bleeds into one of my last questions for you, which is just over the past 3 years, as you've been a business owner, what action, experience, interaction really stands out to you as being fulfilling?
There's a good number of them. I'll give you two very quickly. One of my clients who is in the oil business, they were the prototypical client, people that we hear about making so much money and they were living paycheck to paycheck. And they had a lot of these, they're not bad decisions because they didn't know they were bad decisions. But when we look at it, they were bad financial decisions, borrowing from a 401k, not paying enough in taxes, exercising stock rewards, early, just all of this mess. And they were so lost, had two kids, they had such great income and they needed help. And then COVID happened and the oil industry during COVID got hit really hard. Luckily, they kept their jobs, but they took a 30% pay cut. And I said, you know what, guys, I'm going to take that 30% pay cut with you. I'm going to lower my fee by 30%. They were paying on the monthly retainer. I'm going to lower my fee by 30% until your company, gives you back what you've got. And you know what? We're going to get to work. And we got to a point where I actually advised them to sell their home. Like, you guys can't afford this house, and they knew what needed to be done. They sold their home. They made some money on it and bought a cheaper home more in the suburbs here in Houston, and are so happy with the decision that they made and things like that. Now all of these really good things are starting to happen. They've got a payment plan with the IRS, right? They're starting to get more professional advice from a CPA that I referred over to them. The cost of living in their area is so much less. And they are now able to save where they weren't able to save. Like that's huge to me. And here recently, I had a client that I just finished a financial plan for. This happened over the weekend. She's a police officer and her spouse, she's a physical therapist. And they were just so lost financially. They had a lot of credit card debt and stuff like that. And I got them on a financial plan, took them through the process, right, that I've created. And now they have their financial plan and they have a roadmap. And they send me a picture over the weekend with like cutting up their credit cards and the dog, and they're both smiling. And they just this wonderful email of like how, the work that we did together has really changed their lives. And they just see so much better for their future. There are so many stories like that, right, that just keep me going. Whereas when I first started in this business, I didn't have those stories. I didn't have those wins. I was just so focused on building a business that was just really difficult. And my wife kept telling me, hey, just stick with it. You're really affecting people's lives. And I'd have this conversation with this imposter syndrome thing where I was just like, am I really making a difference? Am I really helping people live their best lives and do all of these wonderful things? And you hear it's like on the XYPN podcast, all of these other great business owners saying, yeah, like I did it and I was able to help so many people. You don't have that in the very beginning. And it was just so difficult to keep trudging on. But I'm here to tell you that you will affect people's lives in such a positive way that you're going to get those stories, and it's really going to drive you forward in becoming a better planner, but also a better business owner.
So well said, Ashley. I just know from experience and from everyone I've witnessed receive financial planning, what a difference it can make in their lives. And it's just no joke that this is a giving people profession that so many people need access to. So as we round out this podcast, Ashley, do you have one piece of advice you haven't yet shared with our wonderful listeners about the challenges and tribulations and the beauty that comes when you follow your intuition and your values and those trigger points?
I think that's always a great question. I always hear that you ask that at the end, and I'm like, what is my answer going to be? And I'll tell just a really quick story. I met with a gentleman here in the Houston area who just got on board with XYPN, but he was really kind of torn. He was referred to me by a colleague of mine who taught the CFP program here at one of the schools in Houston to talk to me about starting his business. And he was thinking about, getting an EA and all these other things. And I told him, I said, no, you're thinking about this wrong. Worry about that later. Worry about opening your business today and getting clients. Like, focus on that. That's where your efforts need to be. And so you go back to the old Nike line, like, just do it, right? It's kind of like that sitting at the edge of a diving board at 30 feet and like, okay, like, am I going to throw myself off of this thing? And yeah, throw yourself off of it. Cause like the worst that happens is like, you have a really good time, right? Like I guess the advice that I can say is that there's a lot of paralysis by analysis. If your dream and vision is to start a business and you keep telling yourself that, if you're in a situation where you're underpaid, you're undervalued, and you think that you can do it better, which I think are the three things that you need to have to be a successful entrepreneur. Because if you're overpaid, you're overvalued, and you think that you're doing it just fine, you're never going to go off on your own and start your own business. And so if you meet those three different things, you are the definition of an entrepreneur. You should be going out there and starting your at least looking at starting your own path. And then when you make the decision to do so, don't get sidetracked by all these shiny toys. Oh, I got to have the right tech stack. I've got to have the right designations. I've got to have the right this. No, just go out and talk to people and do it and tell them what you do and get some clients under your belt and get momentum going. And I think a lot of us get paralyzed and are thinking, well, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? And that happened to me as well. I was paralyzed for 2 years until I figured, you know what, I can do this better, and just do it. And 3 years later, it's the best decision I ever made. But if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, here's the cool part. If Next Gen tomorrow failed, I know several firms that would hire me in a heartbeat that would never have hired me at my old position, in the insurance world, because I've got that experience. I've got, the ability to bring on clients, and I've got the ability to take care of clients, and that's what they want. So if it doesn't work out, there's always an exit ramp. I know Alan says, the worst that can happen is that the business doesn't work out and you go work for somebody else and you make more money. And I really think that's true, but you just got to do it. You've got to take the leap. You've got to have faith, and you just got to jump in the water. And, if you ever jumped in cold water, that shock, it sucks. It's cold. But after a while, it's actually kind of relaxing and you're good to go. So just make it happen, and good things will happen.
Thank you, Ashley, so much for your perspective and your openness on this podcast. I do believe that our listeners will have benefited from your experience. So thank you for sharing it. Congratulations on building Next Gen, and congratulations on finding your alignment and your rhythm. And I can't wait to have you on another year or two to hear about what year 5 and 6 are like.
I absolutely look forward to it. Thank you so much, Maddie.
Thank you, Ashley. An event made just for fee-only advisors? Yep, you heard that right. It's XYPN Live. And with over 45 content sessions, 3 keynotes, a one-of-a-kind exhibit hall day, and networking opportunities galore, it's the game-changing event you've been looking for. Join us in November, in person or virtually, and leave with knowledge, new connections, and a whole lot of inspiration to accelerate your progress and smash your goals, no matter where you are in your advisor journey. Visit XYPNlive.com for full details and to grab your pass. Be sure to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes, and finally, to find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You are not alone and you are not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm, and that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.